Since the reveal of James Gunn's Superman costume, DC fans have been divided on David Coronswet's suit that he's wearing in this Superman movie. It's a little bit baggy, the design's rather odd. It wasn't what anyone was expecting. Some people are saying it's the bestest costume ever, which objectively it is not. And on the other side of it, people are saying it's not as good as Henry Cavill's costume. And I agree, I prefer Cavill's costume. My favourite live action costume is the Reeve costume because it's so understated, right? And it's not embarrassed about who Superman is in the comics, how he was drawn in the comics. It's tights, it's a costume, he's wearing the red stuff on his pants, right? So, do you know what I mean? It's not embarrassed. It's not embarrassed on who Superman is. I've tried to be objective about this costume because lots of people have got different opinions. I've tried to be objective about it. I've tried to give narrative reasons why it's not form-fitting and it's kind of falling off of him. It's a little bit baggy. Could it be that Superman is dying? Just like in All-Star Superman, maybe he's got some kind of solar-powered, radiation poisoning or something. And maybe he's getting more and more ill and losing weight. But it could also be a start-up costume made for him by his mother. There are rumours, and I've been told this as well from people who've seen the test screening, that he actually gets another costume by the end of the movie. So today I want to discuss the Superman costume because it's a very, very heated debate. But as usual, we're talking out of context. Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X. On TikTok, Mad Mickey's World, and on Snapchat, BMouth60. Mick, your host with the most. A very warm welcome to Friday's edition of the DCU Daily. And today we're talking Superman costumes. Which ones work, which ones don't. Is the coronswet costume as bad as some people think? I think in freeze frame, I've said this before, it doesn't look great, but when you see it in live action, which is the most important thing after all, it looks okay. It's not as bad as the Superman Returns costume. Whoa, that costume is absolutely terrible. I've said it before, it reduces Brandon's body mass and height. It's no good in any way, shape or form. And I'll tell you what makes me laugh about the costume and that film. There's lots of things from that film I absolutely adore. But there's a moment where you see him looking at that article that says why the world doesn't need Superman. There's a picture of Brandon Superman in that costume. Now this is prior to him leaving the Earth for 5 years. So after Superman 2, after he beats Zod and the three villains from Krypton, he finds out that from an astronomer lying to him, from Lex Luthor paying him to tell him that Krypton could still be out there, right? So after he's just defeated Zod and all that, he's still wearing his original Christopher Reeve costume. But in that picture, in that why the world doesn't need Superman costume, he's wearing the new costume. To make it even worse, when they're having a conference at the Daily Planet, because Perry White's called a conference, Superman's back, what should we do? How should we talk about Superman in the Daily Planet? So he goes, fashion, is it a new suit? Is that a new suit? Well, there's a picture in your article, Why the World Doesn't Need Superman, before he left, that he's wearing that very costume. So there's a continuity error there, isn't there? I just thought I'd bring that up. Nothing really to do with what we're talking about today. But I was laying in bed this morning when I woke up. Now you know the kind of things I think about. Most blokes might think about hot dames. But I'm thinking about Superman and his costume. I've got Superman on the mind. I've got geek and nerd on the mind. That's who I am. But it's very interesting. So I don't like the Superman Returns costume. I kind of got used to it. But I think they made it for CGI purposes. I really do. And that's the problem. That's the problem with the modern Superman live action costumes. They've also got to look right in CGI. And Dick Donner really didn't have that problem. Even if you look at the Dean Cain costume, it's just the basic costume, it's the cape. You know, it's a little bit modernised from what we saw on, Christopher Reeve, but it's not ashamed of Superman looking like Superman. And I think there is an embarrassment there. I mean, I love Smallville, but the reason they had this whole no flights, no tights aesthetic is because they were kind of embarrassed of that and they knew that might be off-putting to audiences in the early noughties. But I love Smallville. He was truly Superman even without the costume. It shows you it can be done. But James Gunn's Superman movie is a Superman movie and the costume is important in a Superman movie. So let's not get it twisted. This is what I think. James Gunn isn't an idiot. James Gunn wouldn't have got his costume designer to design a baggy, crappy costume. So there's a narrative reason for what's going on. As I say, considering we see him in the costume when he falls into the Arctic, I think it's a start-up costume. And I think the rumours of him getting another costume are true. As I say, I don't care if you like Gunn, like his films, hate his films, keep on accusing him of things that you can't prove he's guilty of, whatever, right? I don't care. Gunn is not an idiot. He may not be Martin Scorsese or Coppola, as I keep on saying, but Gunn is not an idiot. He's not a fool. He's a clever guy. And he's leaking things on purpose. He's allowing the Snyder fans to run away with their own narratives. But ultimately, and I love the Snyder fans, by the way, I love Zack Snyder and all of that, but they could end up with a lot of egg on their face if they're not careful. And this is the problem on crapping on things that you haven't seen before, right? We have not seen this movie. When people say, well, I'm boycotting this movie, no Snyder, no money, that's good, that's your decision, I respect that. But you don't really have a right to criticise something you're not going to see. You'll probably check out some clips, maybe you'll watch it on the Never Never, I don't know. But I'm going to watch it twice on one day because I want to be informed. But also, I said to a Snyder fan the other day, there's no way that I could boycott a Superman movie, despite me being disappointed in what they've done and how they treat Snyder and Henry. At the end of the day, Henry Cavill is a millionaire, Zack Snyder is a millionaire. So, at the end of the day, they're big enough and ugly enough to defend themselves. And they're both doing okay. Henry's about to play a rebooted Highlander, so that's pretty awesome, isn't it? So Henry's doing okay, don't worry about him. But, as I say, Gunn is not stupid. So there's a narrative reason. Now we know he's doing, it looks like he's doing a reverse Kingdom Come, right? So you've got these unruly kind of metahumans who are not really getting what being metahumans is all about. Now in the Kingdom Come story, Superman's old, he's out the superhero game. So they're just, all hell's breaking loose with the metahumans. And it's kind of the same thing. It's a reverse Kingdom Come, which is quite interesting. So we'll see what James is doing with that. So as I say, I do believe that there are narrative reasons why David Coronswet's suit looks baggy, not form-fitting. As I say, I don't believe that James Gunn's an idiot. I think some of you out there wish he was an incompetent idiot, but he's smart. He's clever. He doesn't always get his movies totally right, because in the flying of Guardians 3 wasn't great, but Guardians 3 was great, right? So maybe the guy can't make people fly. Now that's a problem for Superman. Now that flying sequence we saw in that TV spot isn't good. And I don't know. Hopefully we're going to see better than that, because as I say, I don't like that flying. But maybe when I'm sitting in the cinema, it will look better. It will be improved. And maybe again, there's a narrative reason why the flying doesn't look that good. I don't know. I'm not going to totally shit on something that I haven't seen. It's good to look. It's okay to react to things. There's the whole shitstorm over the new Predator designs. It's very, very typical new Hollywood. We know what they're trying to do with that movie. The usual kind of extremism and commentary. But anyway, I digress. Now, there's Tyler Hoechlin's costume. Also, also, excuse me, a costume I believe that was made for CGI. This is the problem. They're made so they work within the format of CGI and the way television and movies are shot today. So they're not just designing a costume for the way it looks, it's how you're going to shoot it. Now, as I say, Dick Donner didn't have to worry about that. But also, the Reeves' Superman costume is very practical. So, like the cape, they stick the cape on afterwards, right? It's not a CGI cape, but they pin it on at the back. I've seen them do it in the BTS footage. So, it's just a very basic costume. And I think that a Superman costume should be basic, and you shouldn't be afraid of what it is. It's a campy costume, but from the minute Christopher Reeve puts it on, it loses that campiness. It looks amazing because it's form-fitting. The guy worked out with David Prowse. I mean, imagine working out with David Prowse. Like, I think he was a Mr. Universe before he got into films and stuff, right? David Prowse was the guy who played Darth Vader, right? He was in the Darth Vader costume in the Star Wars movies. But, yeah, so Reeve worked out well. He had a great body, and the costume was perfect because it didn't look overly silly, right? But it was an understated costume. And these days, I mean, I love the Cavill Man of Steel costume. I think it's great. I don't like the things on the side, whatever they are, but that's nitpicking. Ultimately, I really like that costume. I do feel it's slightly dark. Sometimes it's funny with Snyder. Sometimes he shoots it like brighter than other moments. If you, especially in BVS, sometimes the suit looks brighter, and in other moments it's lit darker. That's interesting. I think that's Zack trying to imply on the tone of the emotional tone of the film, and he's changing the tone of the costume. That's what it looks like to me, anyway. But my opinion on the coronswet suit is that in freeze frame it doesn't look great, but in live action it looks better. When I saw the costume when he's sitting down and he looks like upset or hurt, when the first reveal, I didn't actually think it looked that bad. It looked slightly odd. It looked like something you just, it didn't look like the costume that we expected. There's a lot of New 52 there, isn't there? And I think that's the thing. They always seem to look to, implement New 52 aesthetics, which is quite kind of interesting as well. But so, yeah, I don't like the costume when it's frozen in a picture, but I like it better when I see it in live action. And if you've noticed, it looks different in different places. There's parts of the teaser where it's darkened up and you can barely see the S insignia. And there's other moments where it's brighter, which is also interesting. Don't forget, it looks like there's going to be a clone Superman or Superman in this movie. There could be an army of Superman. And I think Lex is going to wear the power suit. And I think there's going to be an army of people wearing the power suit as well. And this is what I've been saying all along. Difficult to judge this movie out of context because we barely know anything about it. That's also exciting, but utterly concerning because that's not how movies are marketed today. But he's marketing this movie that way. He's making it, as I say, there's a lot of ambiguity about this movie. It's very mysterious. There's a lot of mystique. And I kind of like that, and I hate that as well, because is the mystique there to hide things that they're worried about? Or is this film actually going to be something utterly special? I suspect they're hiding things for spoilers reasons. It's not a bad thing that people have had mixed opinions about the test screenings. Don't forget the Flash movie. Apparently everyone loved the Flash movie. I went to a test screening and saw a cut of the movie that we didn't see, which I personally really liked and preferred to the movie we actually got. But ultimately, we heard good things about the Flash test screenings and the Flash flopped. So maybe this is a good thing that actually, there's a mixed response. So, and plus, test screenings are not a finished version of the movie. It's not a finished cut. It's not the cut that you're probably going to see. So, it doesn't really matter. The test screening is there to get an audience's opinion to make the relevant changes. That's the point of the test screening. You'd have to be really dumb to take anything seriously you hear from test screenings.